awareness for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls.
After seeing all the people who stopped to look at the signs, I feel like it really enlightened them.
The annual event that's pushing beyond marking the moment will explain the specific policy changes demonstrators called for on the annual Red Dress Day.
It is the backbone of our network.
Plus, cut service, added time. We'll walk you through the TTC service changes starting this weekend.
I talk a little bit about my son and what I'm looking to inspire him to be able to see in his dad's struggle.
And the Toronto man's inspiring journey launches this weekend. How he's proving MS won't slow him down as he tries to lift up families struggling with the disease from coast to coast. Good evening, I'm Chris Glover. Today is the National Day of Awareness for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls. Many communities across the country are also marking it as Red Dress Day. The day is certainly about pausing and reflecting, but it's also about calling for concrete action that goes beyond symbolism. Dale Manukduk gets us started tonight.
About 40 people, mostly young persons, marched in Scarborough today to raise awareness for missing, murdered Indigenous women, girls, and two-spirited people.
After seeing all the people who stopped to look at the signs, I feel like it really enlightened them.
Statistics Canada data from 2019 found that despite making up just 4% of the population, Indigenous women and girls represent 28% of the homicides perpetrated against women in Canada, and that they're 12 times more likely to be murdered or go missing than non-Indigenous women.
I'm white, I come from Europe, and knowing that some women, some sisters are being treated this way, it makes me feel very, very angry.
Girls and two-spirited people who have gone missing or been murdered in Canada.
The walk was organized by the Scarborough Centre for Healthy Communities Mind and Spirit Youth Leadership Committee. But it wasn't the only show of support in town. Across the city, outside Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino's office, a group rallied in support of a public alert system.
I'm joined today with women.
On Tuesday, Winnipeg Centre MP Leah Gazin called for a national emergency declaration on violence against Indigenous women, girls, and two-spirit people, and also called for an Amber Alert-like system.
An alert system like this would be helpful because it has been proven successful for the Amber Alert. When children go missing, 80% are found.
The Federal Minister of Emergency Preparedness is open to the alert system and says it needs to be done in the right way after engaging with Indigenous communities. The government has been slow to take action on 231 calls for justice in a national inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls.
We've had a lot of prayers and thoughts and wringing of hands and promises to do better by all levels of government. And yet we end up with Indigenous women in garbage dumps.
Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
More service cuts to fill you in on for TTC riders. Come Sunday, several routes are expected to have longer wait times, and the Transit Authority says it's adjusting to demand that still has not bounced back to pre-pandemic levels. While some seasonal destinations in Toronto are about to see a boost, transit advocates worry it's another bout of bad news for your average daily rider. Talia Ricci breaks it down.
Starting Sunday, you'll be waiting longer for the TTC along some routes, including here on the Yonge University line, where the wait times will be increasing every day of the week.
According to data provided by the TTC, wait times on Line 1 will increase from 3 minutes to as much as 4 minutes during weekday morning and evening rush hour, up to 6 minutes in the afternoon, and from 5 minutes to as much as 8 minutes from 10 p.m. to the end of service. Riders can expect wait times on weekends to reach up to 8 minutes.
It is the backbone of our network, and the reason why it's so successful is its high frequencies. And if we lose that, then it really drives riders away.
Buses will be replacing streetcars on these routes: King between the Distillery Loop and Broadview Station. 504 King streetcar service will be removed east of Sumac Street to Broadview Station. On the 505 Dundas streetcar route, Broadview Avenue north of Gerrard Street East will be closed due to track work. On the 506-306 Carleton, streetcars will not be running on Gerrard Street East between Broadview Avenue and Main Street Station. Some bus services will be cut back. There will be fewer trips on the 19 Bay and 65 Parliament buses due to an anticipated reduction in people traveling to George Brown College. And starting Monday, 32 Eglinton West will start to see longer wait times between buses.
They just say, oh, well, we're adjusting service to match demand. Well, that's nice, but what that actually means is the buses will come less often than they used to.
There are going to be a number of major construction projects related to roads and infrastructure. So when you look at what we've got out there versus what the demand is, we've got very good service.
The TTC will also be increasing service to Woodbine Beach and rolling out seasonal bus routes to popular summer spots like Cherry Beach, Bluffers Park, and the Toronto Zoo. The TTC says they're also making some schedule changes to improve service.
We have a significant enhancement on the Markham Road corridor in Scarborough. We're also making significant improvements to the overnight service on weekends for streets like Finch and Jane and Wilson.
But between the increasing wait times, recent safety concerns on the TTC, and a fare hike, a lot of riders aren't impressed.
Extremely dissatisfied. I couldn't be more upset. And sometimes I just have to walk because sometimes my feet are more reliable than public service.
I feel like that just is the reality, is more people are going to want to drive, and that's what we're trying not to do.
A full list of these changes can be found on the TTC's website. Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
Meanwhile, on the campaign trail today, mayoral candidate Anthony Perruzza was talking about his plan to stop spending taxpayer dollars on hotel shelters.
To house a homeless person in the hotels, it's costing us anywhere between $80,000 and $100,000 per person. It's absolutely not sustainable.
So says the city should instead be building sustainable housing options. He says there are existing examples of structures that can be built quickly and at a fraction of the cost of the hotel shelter system.
I was surprised to see that somebody as chief of police, that when crime is going up, when we have major incidents like the van attack that shake our city, that our police chief is spending 216 days. That's almost a year. That's several months in 5 years that were spent outside the city.
Over to the Village, where Anna Bailão was campaigning earlier today. There were no major announcements from the candidate, but as you just heard there, instead, Bailão was questioning former police chief Mark Saunders' commitment to that job as police chief. Saunders responded in a statement saying Bailão's accusations are a distraction from her own voting record, where she refused to provide police the support they need, Saunders said.
Instead of adding tracks to Richmond and Adelaide streets for the Queen streetcar diversion, I will save the city $38 million and improve TTC reliability. I will do this by running the Queen streetcar along King between Spadina and Church during the construction.
And Brad Bradford talking Ontario Line construction today. He says the current plan of diverting streetcars onto Richmond and Adelaide streets will result in years of traffic headaches. And instead, Bradford wants to divert the Queen streetcars farther south to King. He says he would keep Adelaide and Richmond dedicated to vehicle traffic and maintain the protected cycling lanes on Adelaide and Richmond as well. And speaking of Queen's nearly 5-year-long construction closure as a result of the Ontario Line, we have now seen our first full week of the vital streets shut down. Our Hayden Waters traveled around the Strip trying to figure out the fastest mode of transport to navigate the area.
Hey, I'm Hayden. I'm down here on Queen Street. Got my stopwatch here. We're gonna figure out the fastest way to get through this closure. So we're gonna start with walking. I'm at the corner of Queen and Victoria right now. Can we start our stopwatch up? Ready? 3, 2, 1, go. All right, let's start walking. It's about 300 meters long. So far, so good. Walking is a pretty good way to get around this closure, I think. Round 2 here. This time I got a bike out, and we're gonna see how fast we can go across the Queen Street closure on a bike. Hi there, GoPro. 3, 2, 1, let's start the timer. All right, and I'm gonna bike. Here we go. Okay, biking to the intersection. This is probably gonna be the longest part of it. We're at 1:54. We're gonna see if driving is faster or slower than walking or biking. And I got my trusty stopwatch right here. Let's give it a start. All right, we're taking a right turn on Richmond, and we're probably gonna have to wait here for a bit. There's the Eden Center right there. Oh, and we got a green light coming through Yonge. This might be pretty fast, actually, to be honest with you. This is interesting, too. Stop non-in-use board at Yonge Street or York Street. We are approaching the corner of Queen and Bay. This is going to be a photo finish, basically. We'll go stop. All right, made it to the other end of Queen, got my stopwatch and my times right here. The absolute fastest way to get from one end to the other, that would be biking at 2:28, followed up by driving at 3:34, and then the absolute slowest way, that would be walking on my own 2 feet at 4:12. Now I know.
And knowing is half the battle. Thanks, Hayden, for that one. Here's a live look at the Toronto skyline right now. 10 degrees under clear skies, and Colette is joining us with a first look at the forecast, warmth, and the return of sun today. Not going to lie to you, Colette, I was pretty into it.
Yeah, Chris, I guess that's a little more like it, right? When we can get not only some sunshine coming through, but also get the temperatures trying to get back closer to seasonal. And hey, how about above for Ottawa, the nation's capital, 18 degrees, and Windsor at 19. But in between, okay, we're getting there. We're getting there towards the mid-teens. A decent day, certainly, in the GTA. And just looking ahead at what we can anticipate, clear skies tonight and for much of the day tomorrow. So, yes, another day when we're going to have sunshine, quite a bit of it. I do want to mention that we get into a chance of seeing some showers in the weekend forecast, but that's into Sunday or maybe Saturday night, a few isolated sprinkles in southwestern Ontario. So I'll have some more detail on this coming up. We'll get into that, and you can look at the timing. But for tonight, your low 6 degrees, and tomorrow afternoon, a little warmer still. Mostly sunny skies and a high of 16, Chris.
Can't wait. Thank you, Colette. The World Health Organization is declaring an end to COVID-19 as a global emergency, but the head of the UN Health Agency warns that it doesn't mean the pandemic itself is over.
The worst thing any country could do now is to use this news as a reason to let down its guard, to dismantle the systems it has built, or to send the message to its people that COVID-19 is nothing to worry about.
It had been put in place in the early days of the pandemic and before any effective vaccine was developed. At the pandemic's peak in January of 2021, it killed more than 100,000 people every week. The latest WHO data for the week of April 24th shows that rate has slowed to weekly 3,500 deaths. Over the last 3 years, the disease has killed more than 6.9 million people across the world. Back here in Ontario, and the provincial government says it is helping organizations tackle hate, announcing $25 million over 2 years to help religious and minority groups beef up their security. Lorenda Redicop has those details.
Here, someone is caught on security camera spray painting hateful graffiti on a Hindu temple in Windsor. Hateful messages painted on this mosque were quickly covered up. Places of worship are among the most targeted with acts of hate.
We're going to stand up to hate and to stand up to intolerance.
Groups can apply for a grant of up to $10,000 aimed at protecting their facilities from hate-motivated crimes.
Examples could be enhancing locks, installing security cameras, building upgrades, training staff, and hiring of security.
The government says there were more than 1,500 police-reported hate crimes in Ontario in 2021, with Muslim and Jewish communities among the most targeted, as well as Indigenous, Black, and LGBTQ communities. Last month, a man drove directly at someone outside a mosque in Markham, then entered the building yelling Islamophobic slurs and threats. The National Council of Canadian Muslims pushed for this funding.
Especially during the month of Ramadan, we received more than 40 calls reporting security issues related to Islamophobia by the community in Canada and the whole country.
It's almost 2 years after the attack on a Muslim family in London, walking home after they left their mosque. 4 family members were killed. That year, the government started a similar fund, $40 million over 2 years, that was set to end. This one is less, $25 million over 2 years. The government said not enough groups applied, so not all the money was spent. Now it's also expanding what groups can use the money for. It's just the latest government announcement spending more money geared at safety and security or policing in recent weeks. According to one political scientist, taking advantage of recent violent incidents, such as on the TTC.
If people are feeling insecure, then it's usually parties of the right that are going to benefit by saying, well, if you elect us, we will bring you security. And so in that way, it's natural for them to try and see if they can push some of the concerns that are out there a bit further.
Groups will be able to apply for this security funding starting in summer. Lorenda Redicomps.
Welcome back. Leafs Nation has reason for concern today. The team has to dig itself out of a hole after losing a second straight game against the Florida Panthers.
Oh, yeah, that was a bad game. They played good hockey, just never got no breaks.
We need Bobrovsky to, sit on the bench.
He's playing very well, very well.
Not
so
worry, goaltender can steal a series.
Yeah, they can. Ours can do the same. So, just need Samsonov to turn around and do the same thing.
Yeah, but more bad news for the Buds. Rookie forward Matthew Nyes is out with a concussion for at least the next 2 games after this hit that he suffered last night. But there's also a bit of good news. The Leafs have a perfect 3-0 record on the road so far in these playoffs, and they'll try to keep that going in Game 3 on Sunday in Florida. Now to a Toronto father who's on a mission to cycle from coast to coast to inspire the country and raise a whack of money for multiple sclerosis. Patrick Swadden sat down with him before he hits the road this weekend.
Jonathan Allinger is gearing up for the journey of a lifetime. It's something he's been thinking about since he was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis 10 years ago.
It's been a journey in and of itself, living with MS. I've had all sorts of ups and downs.
Allinger will soon face different ups and downs when he crosses the Rocky Mountains on his bike. The 39-year-old is cycling across Canada, and he says it's about more than a goal to raise $1 million for MS Canada.
MS shouldn't stop you. I'm looking to inspire people to think big, right? I talk a little bit about my son and what I'm looking to inspire him to be able to see in his dad's struggle.
That journey begins this Sunday in Vancouver and will cover 6,000 kilometers as Allinger makes his way through Calgary, Winnipeg, Toronto, Montreal, and St. John's. He's hoping people will follow him at MS Bike across Canada and contribute. MS Canada says nearly all its current funding comes from private donations or fundraising like Allinger's. And it's important because MS has no cure.
12 people a day are diagnosed with MS in Canada. Canada has a really high prevalence rate of the disease.
For Allinger, symptoms include fatigue, brain fog, and difficulty with simple tasks. Progressive forms of the disease can result in paralysis and complete inability to function.
Our vision at MS Canada is for a world free of MS.
MIT says they funded $200 million in MS research over their 75-year history. And she says discoveries are being made, including important research from Harvard University showing nearly every MS patient had a particular virus before diagnosis. While here in Canada, a U of T neuroscientist is trying to reprogram cells that drive MS's progression.
It's called direct lineage reprogramming. And so what happens is that we can deliver kind of codes or instructions to cells to tell them to become another type of cell.
Faz says this would allow them to replace cells that are attacked in MS patients.
And so in this way, we can remove cells that we don't want that maybe drive disease, and we can put back cells that are really important for repair or recovery.
She says it's still in early development, but hopes the method will go to clinical trials. MS Canada says the disease needs much more funding. They recently asked the feds for $15 million for MS research.
The time is now. We know we need to invest in this now. We have the information, we have this data.
And that could have a huge impact on the 1 in 400 Canadians with MS, as well as their families. People Allinger is hoping will support him on his trek.
The journey with Jonathan is about having other people join us and participate because we're trying to do this together as a community.
Patrick Swadden, CBC News, Toronto.
Just love that inclusive message. All right, Colette is back now with a look at the long-range forecast. And Colette, I'm already planning this weekend, especially with this beauty weather that's coming our way.
Yeah, here we are knocking on the door of the weekend just in time. The weather made a turn, and we saw that area of low pressure that was just stalled over top of the Great Lakes finally moving away, and decent weather today, and most of the weekend looks pretty good too. I've got some details to share with you, but a beautiful start for Saturday. We're going to see a lot of sun, a bit more clouded to the later afternoon hours. You'll see that a bit earlier, but fair weather cloud earlier into southwestern Ontario. Then some afternoon rain shower that risk Sunday, primarily in the afternoon, and it should be relatively light into the GTA. Now, could be a bit heavier a bit further north towards Georgia Bay into cottage country, and temperatures really trending back towards seasonal. So we were getting there today. We really see things heating up a bit further for tomorrow, a dip Sunday, and then Monday up again. So the ridge of high pressure gives us the clear skies, quiet conditions tonight without any active weather for the lower Great Lakes. And then looking ahead through Saturday, this is some of that fair weather cloud coming in into the afternoon hours towards evening over towards the city. And then a few isolated showers are possible, very, very light in nature. So I'm not going to concern myself too much with this batch. I just want you to know the timing here then as we get into Sunday. Maybe a few embedded thunderstorms there earlier in the day for southwestern Ontario, so you could get tagged in the Windsor area with some heavier downpours, even perhaps over towards Leamington and Chatham-Kent. But it looks like it kind of splits, and we often see this as it pushes towards Lake Ontario. So I'm not saying there won't be showers through the city. I do anticipate it, but probably a heavier stuff a little bit further east. And same thing into the Niagara region. You could pick up more widespread showers coming through midday, Sunday, and then into early Sunday evening. The overnight temperatures tonight, they will drop back into single digits all around, but still pretty pleasant. A good way to start the day. Tomorrow we'll get those temperatures warming up, and by afternoon push to 16 degrees. Seasonal norm for this time of year is a high of 17. We dip a tiny bit Sunday, but we hit that mark as we head into Monday, Chris.
Looks wonderful. Thank you, Colette. Finally, tonight, for all the thrill seekers out there, Canada's Wonderland is back for the 2023 season.
It's opening day here at Canada's Wonderland. It feels like summer's just around the corner. We're really excited. We have 2 new rides coming this season. Tundra Twister is the new thrill ride. It's a 360-degree pendulum. It's going to take guests spinning in all kinds of directions. And then Snoopy's Racing Railway is our new family launch coaster coming to Planet Snoopy. We hope to have those open coming this month.
Grace Peacock there is pumped. Are you? Besides the new rides, you can also visit all the classics from Behemoth to Windseeker. It is the perfect place to get that adrenaline rush, Wonderland says. There will also be a Brazilian-themed food festival in the summer, and the park is going to be open from 10 to 6 on weekdays and 10 to 8 Friday through Sunday. And that's our show for you tonight. Thanks so much for watching. Shannon has you tomorrow night at 6. Have a great weekend, everybody.